join. KB, you get the prize for joining first. There isn't a prize, but if there was, you would get it. In the meantime, we're gonna give people 2 minutes after it's 6:30 for me. So at 6:32, we're gonna start, but in the meantime, if all of you wanna put in the chat where you're calling from, I would love to know. Southern California. Virginia. I used to live in Virginia. Utah, Georgia. Now we just need some Midwesterners and we'll get the whole United States. Well, every sector. Okay, we'll give people 2 more minutes to join. Then obviously people can join after that. They'll just be late. Miss the good parts. All right, if you've just recently joined, go ahead and put in the chat where you are calling in from. India. Welcome. What is it? Like 4:30, 4 in the morning? Oh, it's 6 in the morning. You're up early. Awesome. So those of you who are just joining, feel free to put in the chat where you're calling in from. And we will get started in 1 more minute. New York. Okay, still waiting for someone from the Midwest, but we've got both coasts and all the way over to India. So hopefully more people will join as we get started, but I also want to respect your time. So I always leave 2 minutes and then go ahead and get started. So this is MBA tips for non-traditional backgrounds, also helpful for traditional backgrounds as well. Although I will be couching the remarks in more of a, you don't have the specific business school undergrad or consulting background. And so you're going to be doing things a little bit differently as you think about your application, as you think about business school. So a quick note about what we're going to be covering. I will tell you the secret about MBA admissions. I don't know, maybe it's not a secret. It was a secret to me before I went to business school. And then I'll just do really quick talking about resume, essays, finding recommenders, and preparing for interviews. I've got some really great slides. I'll do a couple of demonstrations, nothing exciting, just using AI to help with especially resumes. And I would love for it to be interactive as well. And so feel free to talk in the chat as much as you want. You can talk in the chat to each other. I've been in a lot of Zoom calls. I actually did my MBA during COVID. I started in 2020. And so I have done a lot of things on Zoom. And for me, the most exciting ones are the most interactive. So in order to help facilitate that, a couple of things. I have on almost every slide, I have a piece of famous art, and it has something to do with the slide. And I'm going to ask you all to guess at, or if you know what the art is, to put it in the chat. And then at the end, hopefully some people will know some of the art. I'll take all of the winners of the art and do a random drawing for someone to get an hour of free coaching from me. So this will help you stay engaged and hopefully keep things interesting. And the other thing is, I do not expect you to have your cameras on. I know these things are really awkward when you join, camera on, camera off. But I do want to know who I am talking to. And so if all of you can just really quick turn your camera on and wave at me, then you can turn your camera off and do whatever you want. If it's not possible, if you're like in bed or whatever in the car, that's fine. But if you can just turn your cameras off or on, wave at me. You can keep it on if you want. You don't have to. I hate it when people make me keep my camera on and I'm like eating or whatever. But yeah, I'd love to see your faces. Um, and if not for the whole time, then for a minute. So I'll give everyone 20 seconds to do a quick hi. This is actually really fun because all I saw before were just initials. I didn't even see names. So this is great. And if you've joined recently, go ahead and put in the chat where you're calling in from. We have most of the time zones in the US and also India. So that's fun. I am currently in Utah and it's still really nice and light outside, beautiful weather, Toronto. Orem, Utah. Oh, that's great. Cool. Okay. Well, the rest of you, if you weren't able to turn your camera on right now, but want to turn it on later in the session, feel free to give me a little wave. Great. So first of all, a little bit about me. I got my MBA from Wharton. Like I mentioned before, I started in the fall of 2020, which was probably the worst time to get an MBA, but it was the worst time to do a lot of things. And so being in an MBA program, things could have been a lot worse. While I was at business school, I actually launched a startup and worked on that for a few years after business school. Before business school, I worked for the US government. I worked for the US Trade and Development Agency, the US International Development Finance Corporation, the US Small Business Administration, and I'd also spent almost a year in a consulting situation. Worked for a couple of other companies as well. I'd lived all over the world. I had a master's degree and I spoke several languages. So although some of my experiences were sort of finance or consulting related, I definitely saw myself as a very non-traditional candidate and learned a lot of things along the way that I think can be helpful for others as well. Also, this is from a template. That's why I put a review that someone left me, a 5-star review, because they had a space for reviews. So one final thing, and I'll remind you at the end of the session as well, but I would love to get any reviews that you have from this session. I think you're going to be able to give a review after this session. And so for everyone that gives me a review, just send me a note and I will send you a copy of the deck. This video will be available for a week on YouTube, and then they're going to put it on their Leland Plus platform. So if you have that, you can access it again. But if you don't have Leland Plus and you want the slides, leave me a review, even a 1-star review. You just don't tell me that it was a 1-star review. Yeah, I will send you a copy of the deck. Okay, so first off, does anyone know name or artist of this painting? For those of you who just joined, we're doing a thing where if anyone knows the name or artist of the paintings that I have, put it in the chat. And at the end, I'll do a random drawing for someone to have 1 hour of free consulting. I don't know how long to give for this. If you know this and you're trying to type it, put your hand up or something. Okay, nobody knows it. They're not all super famous, but they're all in museums. So this is Angelica Kaufman, self-portrait of the artist hesitating between the arts of music and painting. So I thought it was relevant. Would love to know, what is your current industry? So go ahead and type it in the chat. If you're a teacher, if you're working in government, if you're still a student, whatever you're doing currently, go ahead and type it in the chat. Entertainment. Oh, compliance and due diligence, student, retired law, legal service, healthcare, architecture, data science, cybersecurity, technology, product design, real estate management. Oh, cybersecurity. I think that's the second one. I really like Leland's platform. Oh, military. Nice. I like how Leland's platform has your comments pop out of your little screen. That's very fun. Then I know who's saying it. Great. So we've got a really wide variety of industries in here. So I want to talk about the MBA admissions secret. And this is something that I did not know before I applied for my MBA, but someone told me as I was talking to different people, you are not competing with the entire admissions pool. MBA programs are sort of different from undergrad in that they are looking for a diverse alumni. So they want a diverse alumni. Uh, just they want alumni who leave and are in all different types of industries. And so, in order to do that, they also want to draw from a diverse set of um, industries coming into the MBA. And because everyone has different skill sets in these different industries, some of them are much more aligned with what a typical MBA process would look like. If they didn't sort of sort things out into categories, it would be they would have maybe way too many people coming in from consulting and finance, and not many people coming in from sort of more diverse industries or those with a smaller sort of applicant pool. And so you can look at, I have here the backgrounds from Wharton, Harvard, and Stanford from the class that started this year. And they will always post these. I think most MBA, all top MBA programs post these. I think a lot of other MBA programs post them as well. So you can look at sort of who is your competition in here. So for example, you have Wharton. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit because it's kind of hard for me to see. So you see that Wharton has, they don't put numbers on this, but they have a ton coming in from consulting. But then they also have these down here coming in from media and entertainment, retail. They have this category called other. And that is like government, education. No, they have nonprofit government right here. But so you can kind of look at these. We can look at Harvard. They actually published their number, 18% from consulting, but then they have these other categories as well, 5% from military, 6% from nonprofit, government, education. And so as you look at those categories, that is who you are competing with. It is people within your category. So for example, at Wharton, we had a lot of people that came in from consulting, and we also had a lot of applicants from India, for example. So I know someone's on the call from India. And so if you are coming from a consulting background and you went to one of the top undergrad schools in India, you're competing with other people who kind of fit that profile. And so the reason that this matters is in terms of what your GMAT score or GRE score is more important if you're in these categories that have sort of a more business background with consulting or finance, because you're competing with other people who often tend to get really high scores on the GRE, on the GMAT, who have the kind of background that fits exactly this profile. And so for those coming from a non-traditional background, you really want to lean into what makes you different, instead of trying to align yourself with, oh, like a lot of consultants are applying, so how do I make my background sound as consulty as possible? You really want to focus on what makes you stand out and what makes you different. Okay. Anybody know who this artwork is from, or what it's called? I probably should have chosen way more famous art, but it's always worth a try. So this Rothko, it's not a Rothko. Good guess though. This is called Untitled, which would have been a good guess for someone. And it's by Joan Mitchell. And I use this for the essay because I have coached a lot of undergrads, a lot of high school students who are applying to go to college or university in the United States. And as they're writing essays, a lot of times they have all these different pieces of the essay, but you look at it and it's kind of a mess. And I've seen this, I mean, not even just with personal essays, with essay assignments that I had, even in the MBA program, where there's a lot of elements here, but it's really hard to tell a story from this picture. And so I will show you a better a piece of art that aligns better with what it should look like. But when you're thinking about crafting a powerful essay, the first thing to do is start with a memorable and relevant story. And so you want to ground the reader in a vivid personal moment that ties to your why. And there's a couple of reasons for this. One is that MBA like applications reviewers, or actually they even hire essay reviewers that aren't part of the applications team. They literally, their job part-time is to review these business school application essays because they get so many. And it is, so they're reading a lot of essays kind of all at once, not like 1,000 a day, but they're reading a lot of essays. And if you can stick out and be memorable in a good way, that's a really good thing to have. And one of the best ways to do that is by starting with a story that could only come from you, but that ties into your background and your reason for getting an MBA. I'll show an example of this in a second on the next, in 2 slides, I have an example of an essay. So then, because most of you are coming from a non-traditional background, or maybe not a business school, like easy feeder program, you'll want to explain why you're making a pivot. You don't have to call it a pivot, but why is it that you started thinking about business school? Some people in consulting, in financial services, it's just sort of a given that they're going to be wanting to go to business school because it gets them to the next level in their career. But if you're coming from the military, if you're a teacher, if you're coming from, all these different backgrounds, what is it that you can't do, or that you want to do that you can't do without getting an MBA? And obviously there are many ways to achieve things. You could probably, achieve things without an MBA in other ways, but to explain that, like, in order to accomplish my goals, I need this MBA. You can show the business skills you've already used as you go through the essay, things that you've done in your career that have shown that you have these skills to be able to thrive at business school. And then connecting your past to your future impact. So you help the reader see how your unique background gives you an edge in solving these future business challenges that is different than what other standard MBA students might have. Again, lean into what makes you different. And then finally, schools really love self-awareness. So be real about what you bring and what you need to grow. Again, like, this is why business school is right for me. It's going to help me do XYZ so that in the future I can do XYZ. Okay, finally someone famous. Anyone know the artist or name of this painting? Frida. Yeah, good. Okay. SCS. Frida Kahlo. Yeah. SCS got it. If anybody knows the name of the painting or close to the name of the painting, I'll also give you a point in the drawing. Self-portrait. Yeah, it's very close. Self-portrait with thorn necklace and hummingbird. Was that DJ that came out? I can open the chat. Dane. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So Shakarla and Dane, you both get points for the drawing. So the reason I chose this piece of art is because you look at this painting and it tells a story. You can see all the different elements. It comes together as a cohesive whole, but it also has sort of symbols that once you learn what those symbols mean or what they're there for, it becomes even more powerful in the story, in the painting, in the meaning of the painting. So I was not an art history major, but Frida Kahlo dealt with chronic pain for a lot of her life. And so she has this thorn necklace, and you can see some of the blood coming out. A lot of her paintings were representations of this chronic pain that she was dealing with. So now that if you didn't know that before, now that you know that, every time you look at this painting, you're like, oh, wow, that is really powerful. Like, you see the chronic pain that she was dealing with. Whereas before you saw a beautiful painting, but you didn't know all the meaning. And this is kind of how you want to have your essays as well. So this is an example of the essay that I wrote for Wharton. And at the time, well, prior to writing this essay, I was working for the US government, and I went on a work trip to Botswana. I was covering a portfolio that included sub-Saharan Africa. I visited several different countries there. And so I started with a story that was specific to my job and what helped me think about why I wanted to go to business school. When I coach undergrads, I have them use experiences from their own life, often overcoming hardship. Some a lot of people, but especially as they're applying for college and university in the U.S., interviewers really want to see that they have, or applicant readers want to see that they have grit, they have stamina, they've done difficult things. For the MBA, it's a lot more about something from your career, something that shows that business school and not just education as a whole is right for you. And so finding a story from your career, if you're in the military, maybe it's talking about a leadership challenge that, someone that was, you can use bad examples too. So maybe it's someone who was a really, really terrible leader that it made it dangerous for people or frustrating or anything like that, and what you learned from that, and then why you think business school can help you become a better leader in the future. Or if you're a teacher, it can be the excitement of finally getting your class to be excited about learning something new, that you finally found the secret to keeping kids quiet in class, any of those things that really show that you're invested in your career, but you want to take it to the next level. So you start with that story, and then you tie it into your why. So you can see, I talked about this work trip to Botswana. I met a woman who had this awesome idea to create STEM activities for use in Botswana's elementary school, but she didn't have any funding. She didn't know how to set all of this up. And I also had no idea. And so when I was applying to business school for Wharton, I wanted to do social enterprise internationally and wanted to have more of those skills. That was what I put in my application for Wharton. And so I right after the story, I tied that into my why. If I had gone to business school, I would have had these skills. I want to go to business school so I can get those skills. And then I go into what my background is. The past, several years, I've been doing XYZ, and I had a lot of experience working in international trade and development. So I very briefly mention a couple of examples of what I've been doing. And then I does this work? I can't see what you guys are seeing and what I am seeing at the same time. So anyway, the bottom of the second paragraph, it talks about there's more that I want to learn. And so that's kind of a bridge to, so I'm going to go, this is why I want to go to Wharton. And then the third paragraph is why Wharton is a great choice for me, and tie it into, again, my background and my why. Wharton has these amazing international programs. I actually did a dual degree at Wharton with the Lauder Institute as well, which is an international studies degree. And so I applied to both. And so they knew I was applying to both. But I also showed them that there were other things that I had done my homework on this school and what it uniquely had for me. And then end with, like, this is why Wharton is really great for me specifically. Um, okay. Any ideas about painter or name of this painting? Sky and Water. Awesome. Any painter? Any guesses? You can just throw whatever you want out there. I won't judge you. MC something. MC Escher. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So Helen, you get 1 point, and Jaden, you get 1 point for the drawing at the end. Um, great. So the reason I chose this painting is because you see at the top it's birds, and then at the bottom it goes to fish. And something that I learned was that you have to translate basically your resume into business speak. So when I worked for the US government, there were very few things that I tracked individually. I was involved in some very huge things in, for example, meetings that would go into trade negotiations that would then turn into trade policy. But none of those things were something that I did individually. Like as a consultant, you can say, I worked on X amount of projects, it had this amount of money attached, and I, gave them five, um, uh, not suggestions, but sort of 5 ways to solve their problem. And you can quantify it very easily. That's something that they really focus on as consultants in financial services, um, investment banking. You don't always have that when you are a teacher or in the military or coming from government, entertainment. And so when I talk to people about revising their resumes, it's a lot about making it into the language of the people who are going to read it. And so it's not so much like lying or stretching the truth on your resume as it's taking exactly what you've done and turning it into the language that others will understand. So the way you can do this is focus on metrics, even if they weren't formally measured. So, for example, when I was working pre-MBA, the onboarding process for the job that I was hired into was very messy. And it was basically like, look at the last person's emails and get up to speed that way. And so I created an onboarding document that talked about everything that needed to be done, all of our jobs, and helping people get up to speed really quickly. But I didn't time before and after how long it took to onboard before, how long it took to onboard after. That wasn't the sort of metrics. But I was able to look at what I created, what I contributed, and what that led to. And then say, that was at least a 30% improvement in time to onboard. And so it's looking at things like that. And in the next slide, I'm going to show you how you can do this, even if you're struggling right now to think, how do these things that I've done translate into business speak? You'll want to highlight leadership, initiative, and ownership, even if it was a team or a multi-department initiative. Look at what you owned and use I, not we. That's very different than a lot of industries that people are coming from, where it's very much a team sport, but you really have to show that you contributed to something. You weren't just on a team that won great things and you were sort of sleeping every day. And then take your soft skills and make them concrete and results driven. And so you can link skills like adaptability or empathy to measurable outcomes or team success. I'm going to show you again a way to do this. And the last way is actually something that I did not have access to when I was applying to business school. So I had to hire someone to help me with my resume. But now you can use AI to show you the metrics or outcomes that you might have missed. So you can describe your job to ChatGPT or your favorite AI and ask what metrics or outcomes they would suggest, or it would suggest that you might have missed. So I'll show you an example of that with there's a lot of text on this page, but basically what I want to show you is this prompt that I have some bullet points for a job I had with the US government. And then I had the bullet points for my resume and described my job a little bit, and then asked, what other things might a person in this role have done? Some of it is because I honestly do not remember from jobs that I had a long time ago that were on my government resume, but weren't sort of translated to business speak, and telling ChatGPT that I'd like to have metrics and outcomes with them. So this works really well. Actually, let me show you an example of this. Okay, so I'm going to go into ChatGPT. Does anyone want me to do this with your industry or your job? No? If you do, just type what your job is. Architecture, event. Okay, let's do event designer, because that is super different. Okay, so I can only see your initials, HS. Who's HS? Helen. Helen, give me a couple of, and you can either type it or you can unmute and just give me a couple of things that you do as an event designer. If you want to type, I will start typing in ChatGPT. So what I'm going to tell, I don't know,
I
you all
can
coming
just let
from
you
very
know because
different
the speaking is
experiences.
just too much.
Oh, Helen. Okay, you're talking to
Yeah,
me.
the typing is too much.
Okay.
So basically all the logistics of the days before, the day of, everything from taking care of the client to taking care of the event space, decor, everything. So yeah.
And are you like, does someone else do all the other work and you're just like the event itself, or do you also do other things?
What do you mean?
Like, are you finding clients? Are you liaising with them after the event? Or are you like very specifically just around the event itself?
So I'm self-employed and it's my company that I'm starting. So
Okay.
I basically do everything at this point, which is a little overwhelming because I'm getting a little too many clients. So it's, but I'm doing everything from before to after the event. Photographers, making sure that the client gets the pictures, everything. So it can be even like months after the event and I'm still in contact with the client.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Helen. This is really perfect, actually, because um, ChatGPT is going to be really great with this. So this is kind of difficult to describe. Like, how do I turn these into specific metrics that will matter in business school? And so I'm just going to tell ChatGPT um, something like, pretend I'm applying to business school. I am an event designer and I do all things for the company. And then I'm leaving all these things. And then I'll just put my company and I do everything. And then I want to say something like, give me let's see, so give me a list of um, resume type things that I have done that would be important in a business school setting. And then I'm going to say, give me metrics with an X or percent place placeholder. So then ChatGPT knows that you want, and this is very messy, which I often start very messy with ChatGPT because I don't always know exactly what I'm going for. But I just kind of threw in, like, I do all these things, like ChatGPT knows kind of what event designers do. And so I want these metrics with an X or a placeholder. And then I'll say, I want 10 bullet points. And I love doing this with resumes for ChatGPT because it gives you the language that would make sense to the type of setting that you're applying to. So for this, it's business school. They're using these business terms. Um, you've managed budgets. You built and maintain long-term client relationships. Um, this one may or may not be true. Oh, it says contractors. So yeah, it's talking about your contractors and vendors and marketing strategies, logistics planning, post-event processes. It gives you where you might need these placeholders. And so then you can look at, oh, these are my metrics. If you don't have those metrics, you can ask, what are other bullet points or what are other metrics that I could be measuring with this? And all of these might not be true, but some of them, and maybe most of them, are at least somewhat true. And then you can take this and turn them into bullet points that actually match what you did. But this was just from saying, event designer, logistics, day before, day of, etc. And so that can be like a super helpful tool as you're trying to translate your resume into this business speak. Helen, I like your startled face. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to the deck and I'm going to show you how. Let me share it again. No, I don't want to share my presenter. Here we go. Okay, so this with, I did this. I didn't include my bullet points, but I did this with the job I had with the US government. And I said, what other things might a person in this role have done? ChatGPT had no idea what exactly I did in this niche role, just that I did program management and I had 3 or 4 bullet points. And so then it said, okay, you might have done market analysis, proposal and grant management, program monitoring and evaluation, capacity building, strategic reporting, etc. And so this can be a really great tool. You can also do this with your bullet points if like I have my resume, it's really good in terms of what I did, but I don't know how to translate it into this business speak. So this is actually like the resume that I had when I started applying to business school. And I have this bullet point that is so jargony. This is pretty common for coming from government, where I managed the Sub-Saharan Africa, Middle East, North Africa, and Eastern Europe portfolios for the USTDA's Global Procurement Initiative, Understanding Best Value GPI. That is like all necessary in government, but it means absolutely nothing to anyone outside of my specific agency, actually. And I have another bullet point, and it lists all the agencies that I worked with. Again, very important in government, but not at all useful for applying to business school or outside of government. And so I put these into ChatGPT and I said, I'm applying to an MBA program. I want these resume bullet points to have less government jargon, be business oriented, and have metrics, make them concise. And so it took these 3 bullet points that basically said nothing, and it gave me 4 bullet points with metrics in this business speak. So that is, I mean, even if you're applying for things not in business school, you can run things through ChatGPT for the specific job that you're looking at, the specific industry, and this can be really, really helpful. Oh, wait, I didn't do, does anybody know yeah, Van Gogh butterflies. Okay, so Shakali, you got another point, and Dane, I'm so glad that you guys didn't forget about this. Okay, great. So any ideas on the artist or name of the painting. The guy who painted Nighthawks. Um, yes, the guy who painted Nighthawks is Edward Hopper. So, Nav, I'm going to give that to you. Even though you didn't get his name, you got the right one. And then Chop Suey, Carla, I'm impressed. You've got a lot of these. Okay, so when you're choosing and preparing your recommenders, I'm going to go kind of quickly through these last couple of slides so that we have time, a couple minutes for questions. So you'll want to choose someone who's seen you grow, not just perform. As if they can speak to how you've evolved, that can be really great in an MBA application. You'll want to help the recommender, that's supposed to say them, help them understand the what and why behind your MBA goals. So in the recommendation, they can speak to that. I saw her do XYZ. I saw him perform, grow in this way. I think that getting an MBA will help them reach their post MBA goals, or doing an MBA will really help them in this way. You'll want to give them your resume, 2 to 3 strengths to highlight. Suggest to them one strong story that they know well that shows your leadership, your resilience, or your initiative. Something that if it is your boss, they might have forgotten about, but if it's someone that from outside of work, maybe something that you're worked with them on a volunteer project or something like that, to remind them, this is what happened in this situation. And so then they can write that very easily in the recommendation. And then you'll also want to prep them with language that fits the MBA frame, especially if they don't have a business background or they haven't gotten an MBA, giving them some of these soft praise into business ready traits like strategic thinking or influencing outcomes, things like that. Okay, another painting. Name or artist. Oh, Helen, I'm going to have questions at the end. So I don't know if you have a question that is more urgent than that. It's not confrontation, but it does start with con. Nav, you're so close. Conversation, Shakarla. Wow. Okay. Shakarla, do you work in a museum? Jaden. No. Okay. Well, I'm really impressed with your art knowledge. This is The Conversation by Zach Zdrale. And so here is preparing for the MBA interview. You'll want to know your through line. Like we talked about in the essay, what is your past? What is the reason for the MBA? And how does that help you reach your goals? What is this wine nose? Sorry, I don't know what I meant when I said practice articulating the why nose and why MBA, but basically tying your background to your future. And then you'll want to translate your experience into these business themes. Again, very similar to the resume, to the essay, but you'll want to be able to talk about this out loud. And so that means practicing, even if you're just practicing to an empty chair, speaking these things out loud. You'll want to be able to tell your story to lay people. So if you're coming from the military, there's a lot of terms. If you're coming from real estate, if you're coming from teaching, all these different things where people outside of your profession often don't understand what specific things mean as it relates to business. And so practice, you can even do this same thing in ChatGPT, tell ChatGPT your story, write it out, and then ask them to translate it for someone who is in business. And then practice telling the story that way. So don't memorize your answers, but just practice telling your story out loud. And then revisit the key moments that show how you think, not just what you've done, but how you think, how you make decisions, how you show ownership and impact. Okay, last piece of art. Oh, why now? I did mean why now. Yeah, it's Dolly. And does anybody know Nav got it first. Does any time? It's not called time. A lot of people think it's called time.
The persistence of memory?
Yes, this is the persistence of memory. Who spoke? Was that Helen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. It's hard to type it out. I should have told you guys you can also shout it out. So Helen, go ahead and type it in and just say, I got it first. So I have it in here. So yeah, some closing takeaways. Your story is your strategy. Translate your own experience. Don't try to conform. Recommenders are part of your narrative. So give them what they need to give you a really strong recommendation. Your interviews test clarity, not conformity. And you already have what you need. You just need to frame it. So a couple of things before I take questions, and I know we're right at the 45 minutes. So if you liked what you saw, if this was helpful, feel free to book an intro call with me. This QR code will actually take you to my profile, and you can book a free 15-minute intro call with me if you want to see if coaching, having me as an MBA coach would be helpful. Also, like I said at the beginning, if you leave a review for this session, just send me a message that you did, and I'll send you a copy of the deck. And then I need to count up. Oh, this is going to be really hard. I'm going to number each of these artists and arts. Okay. So if it was you, I'm going to say your name and the number. Remember your number or your numbers. And then I'm just going to do a random number generator. Okay. So I can't track all of these. So you've got to listen if it's you. Okay. So the first one, Rothko. So Dane, you're 1. Shakarla, you're 2.
I don't think the answer was Rothko on that one.
Oh, it wasn't? Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad that you thank you for you're right. You're right. It was not Rothko. Okay. So Shakarla, you're 1. Dane, you're 2 with self-portrait. Helen, you're 3 with Sky and Water. Jaden, you're 4 with MC Escher. Okay. Shakarla, you're 5. Wait, sorry. Am I in 4? Ugh. Can't count. Does somebody remember? Did I just say 3 or 4?
You just said 4 for Jaden.
4 for Jaden. Okay. So then Shakarla, you are 5 with Van Gogh. Dane, you're 6 with butterflies. Nav, you're 7 for the guy who painted Nighthawks. And Shakarla, you're 10 with Chop Suey. And Shakarla, you're 11 with Conversation. Okay. So I'm going to do random number generator from 1 to 11. Here, I'll share my screen so you guys know that I'm not cheating. Okay. Share. Here we go. So here's my random number generator from 1 to 11, and it's generating 6. So who was 6?
That was me.
That was
Dane.
you. Who was that, Dane?
Yeah, Dane.
Okay. So Dane, send me a message and say I won the 1 hour free coaching, and I will get that set up for you. Awesome. So now I know we're right at 45 minutes. I have more time. If anyone has questions, I am happy to answer them. Where do you write review? I honestly don't know, but I think after this event, you will maybe get an email. If not, I will find that out and I will message the attendees. Dane, you've got to message me like in my profile. So that
Okay, we'll do on Leland's site.
Yes, otherwise I'm gonna forget who it was.
Okay,
So, but yeah, on
try to
Leland,
figure that out.
send me a message.
Perfect. Thanks.
I don't actually know what you get at the end of this. So I will find that out, Shakarla, and then I will send a message to everyone about how to write a review. And I'll also message you the recording. It will be available for a week, like I said, for free. And then they're going to put it behind the Leland Plus paywall. Any other questions? Was this fun or was it cheesy with the art? You can just give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. It was cool. Okay, fun. Okay, good. I wanted to make it interactive, but I know that especially depending on the time zones, these can be like real snoozers. So, and people don't want to be like camera on. So awesome. If there are no other questions, then we will end this. So thanks so much, everyone, for joining, and have a great morning, evening, or I guess most of you are in evening, night, or morning. So, all right. See you, everyone.